So you hear commercial rents quoted in a bunch of different ways. Today I'm going to go over what the typical structures that I see in my deals are so that I can explain to you how and what they mean. My name's Jeremy Mercer. I'm the CEO of Matador Capital, and I place private equity money into commercial real estate assets, and I'm here to teach you today about how commercial rents are quoted and what they mean. Let's go over the most common one that most people know. This is called a triple net rent, which means net, net, net. And what this really means is the rate that you are hearing is what the landlord is putting in his pocket. So if you are a tenant, you don't really care about that. But the landlord, that's all they care about because they want to know what they're going to make. So in a triple net lease, there is the base rent, and then there is the taxes on top of that, the insurance, and then any capital asset management on top of that, whether it be a multi-tenant property that has landscaping, has management, maybe porter service, any of these additional fees that will be in addition to the rent that a tenant will be paying on a property. And all these are billed back to the tenant and recoverable by the landlord. So a triple net lease, typically the tenant is responsible for all of the building systems, except for the roof, walls, and foundation. The structure is the landlord's, but the guts on the inside are the tenant's responsibilities. The HVAC, the plumbing, the electrical, all those things are on the tenant. So another lease structure that we see is what's called a gross lease. A gross lease is the number they quote you is inclusive of all the operating expenses of the property. So if they told you the number is $10,000 a month gross, you, as the tenant, that is the number that you care about because that's what the monthly nut for your business to occupy the space is. So at that point, typically a gross lease will have a base year that they can escalate any of the taxes and insurance off of because they are basing the lease on what they know today as far as taxes and insurance, so they can quote you a gross lease. Typically, in all of my leases, there will be a base year as an expense stop to any amounts over that will be the responsibility of the tenant. It's a very consistent number that they will be paying every month, and most tenants understand that structure a lot better than a triple net. Responsibilities are still the same pretty much. Roof, walls, and foundation are on the landlord. The guts of the building, the electrical, plumbing, HVAC, it's all on the tenant. The third type of lease structure that I get into sometimes are called an absolute net. Similar to a triple net lease where the tenant pays all the taxes, the insurance, the operating expenses. This is 100% on the tenant. You see this typically in larger corporate leases, your fast food chains, any of these type of properties. These are more absolute net investment lease properties. This means that if anything happens to the property, the landlord is not responsible. If it's hit by a tornado, if the roof leaks, if the foundation fails, if the walls fall down, it is all on the tenant to put that back the way it should be. Absolute net leases also tend to have a lower yield because there's less responsibility on the landlord. So these are the three types of common leases that I see in the industrial world. Now, as far as tenant responsibility, when you get into the office world, then the landlords are typically covering the HVAC because the system will cover the whole building. And that is accounted for, though, in their operating expenses. And they are typically paying the electricity on the building as well at that point. But in most of the deals that we do, industrial, multi, and single tenant assets, tenant is responsible for everything other than roof, walls, and foundation. Those are the three types of lease structures that I most commonly see in my world. Sorry, so you can cut that part, but my name's Jeremy Mercer. DM me, subscribe to the YouTube channel, get a hold of me. I'd love to speak to you more about commercial real estate investments.